I'm not gonna lie, I'm pretty much only making this video because it's the one that I wish would have existed when I was first getting into comics. Woof woof! Hey guys, it's me Marcus, aka the Mad Dog, and we're back with another video. Over here on this channel, I've tried to make it a point of mine to make comics more accessible for new readers. And it's all well and good me making these videos, but you might not even have a clue on which character you should read to get into a universe. So coming in at number 10, a character that I think would be very accessible for somebody who's never read comics before is SheHulk. As well, it might be the case that you are looking for a female character to start reading, and I think SheHulk would be the best bet for you because of the fact that she's got quite a range of different stories. There's a sensational SheHulk by John Byrne, who is one of those creators that anytime you hear his name, you're pretty much guaranteed that he's going to be good. You've also got the Dan Slott run from 2005, which was then eventually taken over by Peter David. As well, with a character like SheHulk, you do often get other members of the Marvel Universe that appear throughout her title, and also she has now recently been incorporated into the Avengers. She's also very self-referential, she breaks the fourth wall, and more often than not, she is pretty much doing her own thing. So if you don't know too much about the Marvel Universe or the things that were happening within it, I think SheHulk might be a good introduction for you. Number 9, I've got the Fantastic Thor. I'm just going to say this here, even though it is 2021 and I'd expect that people would already know this, but all these suggestions are my opinion. These are just some of the characters that I think would be best for new readers, and the reason why Fantastic Four are on this list is in a similar way to SheHulk, because more often than not, their stories feature this team doing their own thing. I did recently do a where to start on Fantastic Four if you did want specific suggestions, but over the years you've had creators like John Byrne, Jonathan Hickman, and even Mark fucking Waid. So for a new reader, I think the Fantastic Four gives a great variety of options if it is that you're looking for something that's more family friendly and sci-fi based. They do also segue quite a lot into the main Marvel universe, so it wouldn't be too much of a leap for you to start at Fantastic Four and then be able to jump into some of the other titles. Number 8, and it might surprise a few people that he's this high on the list, but I've got SpiderMan. I think for a lot of people, myself included, SpiderMan was the first comic character that they gravitated towards. And I don't think that's just by chance, it's because of the fact that he's such a fun hero to follow. But unfortunately, as much as I love him, and it might seem a bit hypocritical because of the fact that Ultimate Spider-Man was the first book that I read, I don't think there's as many go-to stories that you can really give to a new reader. There's still quite a lot of them, but proportionally I just don't think it's the most accessible. But you've still got classics like JMS's run, The Untold Tales of Spider-Man, Spider-Man by Roger Stern. You can start easily with Brand New Day, you've got all the Miles Morales stuff, and of course you do have Ultimate Spider-Man. So there is still quite a lot that you can read about this character, and if it is that maybe you're looking for a title that you can pick up for maybe your son or your daughter, this is the one that I'd probably recommend. As well, if you did want to pick up Ultimate Spider-Man, the Omnibus is getting a reprint later this year, and you can already pre-order all 3 of the beautiful covers from our sponsor Organic Price Books. So why not treat yourself to a book? They've got great packaging, fast shipping, and if you use code WOOFWOOF, you will get $2 off your order. And keep this a secret between us, but you can use that as many times as you like. Number 7, I've got Deadpool. Yes, I do have to admit that I find that he is best in small doses, but still, it might be the case that this is the character that can get you into comics. And when it comes to the Merc with a Mouth, there's so many different runs that would be new reader friendly. You've got Joe Kelly, Jerry Dugan, and you've even got Cable and Deadpool. The reason why Deadpool might work better for some people is because of the fact that he doesn't really feel like he's always integrated into the Marvel universe. He's often just doing his own thing, he's got a different sense of humour, and the way that he acts isn't really like some of the other heroes that you might see. You probably already know who he is, so you don't have to worry if it is that you wanted to start reading comics as a result of this character. Just whilst we're here though, if you are enjoying this video, please give it a thumbs up. I'm not really sure if this is something that anybody would find helpful. I just remembered what it was like when I was getting into comics, and I just saw all these titles and I didn't really know which ones I could pick up. So I'll set quite a high like target. If this hits 100 likes, I will do a video similar to this but for DC. Number 6, I've got Wakanda's main man because it's Black Panther. Again, if I'm thinking about characters that often don't rely too heavy on what's going on in the Marvel universe, I do think that T'Challa would be something that would be great for new readers. The 2 main runs that I can recommend are the Marvel Knights one that's done by Christopher Priest, and the one that's done by Reginald Hudlin. Although yes, that second one does deal quite a bit with the ramifications of stuff like Civil War, it's still mostly just about Black Panther and the story that he's on. But maybe you don't want a Marvel character that's always based in New York, or perhaps you want somebody that's got a different kind of responsibility. I think with Black Panther, and as well I have heard great things about the recent run that's done by Ta-Nehisi Coates, he's still often doing his own storyline, so if you started reading one of his books, then you can follow that character as he does get integrated integrated into stuff like the Avengers. Number 5, and almost on the exact opposite end of the spectrum, I've got the Punisher. The Punisher is one of my favourite Marvel characters. I think he would very easily be in my top 5. But luckily I've never had to decide that before, and luckily nobody's asked for that video. But Frank Castle often feels like he isn't a part of the same Marvel universe as everybody else, and a lot of his stories are actually set outside of it. My 2 favourite runs for the character were done by Jason Aaron and Garth Ennis, the second of which I've already done a review of. And depending on which title you read, you can often get stories that feel a lot more grounded and realistic, but then you can also get ones that do cross over with other characters. So you may even wish to read the most recent run that was done by Greg Rucka, because that had a crossover with SpiderMan and Daredevil. But regardless of which story you choose, I don't think you'll have too much trouble getting into the main Marvel universe if you decide to go through it down the route that is bloodied and lined with bodies that was left by Frank Castle. Number 4, and this might sound like a bit of a cop-out, but I've got the X-Men. There are countless people that I know that started reading comics solely because of the mutant side of the Marvel universe. One of the first videos that I did on this channel was where to start on the X-Men, because I think they've got so much potential for new readers to enjoy. Although I would recommend checking out that full video, the one run that I personally would recommend would be Astonishing X-Men. This was the first of their main continuity runs that I read, and as a result of this I started learning more about the individual characters. This then led me to reading Wolverine, which also I'm including as part of this pick. Like I said, this one's a bit of a cop-out, but in a universe where the Avengers and the Fantastic Four are applauded by everybody that sees them on the street, it might be that you want something that is set a bit apart from that. The X-Men throughout the history have even had their own events that are completely separate from everything else that's going on. It's entirely possible that you could decide to only pick up X-Men books and still get a pretty decent understanding of the universe. Number 3, and I've got a feeling that not many people are going to agree with me on this one, but I've got the Hulk. I know to an outsider looking in, maybe somebody that hasn't read comics before, the Hulk just looks like a character that's big, angry, that's always just in a sulk somewhere while some sad music's playing, which kind of sounds like every single one of my Friday nights. But for a character that on the surface often gets labelled as being quite one-dimensional, there's so many different stories that you could go to. When I did my where to start on Marvel Comics, I suggested Planet Hulk because of the fact that it's set outside of the main universe. Not in terms of continuity, I mean that he is literally sent to another world. But you've also got the Red Hulk run that was done by Jeff Loeb that I reviewed last year and I really enjoyed. You've got the very underrated and often forgotten about Bruce Jones run. You've also got the Immortal Hulk that's going on at the moment. As well, the massively acclaimed Peter David Hulk's getting an omnibus line, so there couldn't be a better time if you wanted to start reading this character. And again, similar to like I said with some of the other suggestions, you can then start reading the Avengers because of the fact that you've got an understanding for this character. And spoiler alert, the Avengers aren't going to feature on this list because of the fact that I think that you might have to have a bit of understanding about some of the characters to really understand what's happening in that team. Whereas with the X-Men and the Fantastic Four, they pretty much started as those teams that then branched off into their own individual members. Not really sure if that makes sense, but again, this is my list and I'm not asking for anybody to agree with me. Number 2, again, this might not be one that a lot of people would have chose, but I've got Thor. Yes, it is none other than the Asgardian son, and I think there's so many great runs for this character that a new reader would be able to enjoy. Again, the reason why I'm choosing him and that he's placed so highly is because of the fact that he does stand out a little bit from all the other characters. You can get stories where he's based mainly around Asgard, or you can also see the ones where he's working on Earth. There's such a great balance between the two that I think for somebody who maybe doesn't know a lot about the universe, you might be able to pick up one of his books and learn through that way. But just off the top of my head, you've got great ones like Dan Jurgens, JMS, the current stuff that's being done by Donny Cates, Jason Aaron, and of course the benchmark for what other Thor stories are held to, Walter Simonson. All of these will be great for a new reader that is looking for something that's more fantasy based rather than something that's just straight up superhero. And if I'm looking at the entire Marvel universe and I'm tasked to pick 10 that I think would be best to get any kind of new reader into Marvel Comics, Thor is definitely one of the front runners, which I think is why he needs to be the highest placed Avenger on this list. Now before we get into my number 1, I do want to throw out some honourable mentions because there's so many great characters in the Marvel universe, so it's difficult to contain it just to 10. Of course Captain America has to get a nod when I'm thinking about like the Ed Brubaker run, the stuff by Dan Jurgens, Rick Remender, and of course Mark fucking Waid. It's just I do often think that with his stories you have to know a little bit more about what's going on in the Marvel universe at the time when it's happening. Similarly, I've got Iron Man. Of course you know I love the series that was done by Matt Fraction, that's one of my favourite Marvel runs of all time, and yes, it's still still needs a fucking omnibus. You've also got great stories from people like Joe Quesada, Warren Ellis, and you've also got Demon in a Bottle. I also have to give a shout out to Moon Knight, Ms. Marvel, and I'm fortunate enough that I can now actually say Conan the Barbarian. With that last one in particular though, he hasn't been in the Marvel universe for too long, so I don't really feel like I can actually give him a place in this list, especially over the other characters that are already in it. And as well, this might be a cop-out, but my last honourable mention is pretty much any other Marvel character that can get you into these books. That's the point of this video, that I want to make sure that as many people can get into comics as easily as possible. I know, you don't all have to call me a hero at the same time. But my number one pick for the best Marvel character for new readers is of course gonna be the man without fear himself. It is Daredevil. Yeah, of course, anybody that's watched more than one video on this channel had to know that this was going to take the top spot. I love Daredevil. He is my favourite Marvel Comics character, probably of all time, and I think he's also the most accessible one for new readers. Again, yeah, you might disagree with me on this, but I think in terms of just one character that's got the most accessible and enjoyable runs, it's always going to be Matt Murdock. You've got Frank Miller, Bendis, Ed Brubaker, Charles Soule, Chip Zdarsky, and Mark fucking Wade. Already there, you've got 6 phenomenal runs which are all pretty much doing their own thing. They don't expect you to know what else was happening in the Marvel universe at the same time. It's just all about giving you a great story, and Daredevil is one of those characters that's grounded, that's realistic, and I think would be something that a lot of new readers would enjoy. But I have done a where to start on Daredevil, so I'd recommend checking that out. But if I lost all my memories of comics, the one character that I think would be able to get me back into reading them the easiest would be Daredevil. And that's my list, and I'm hoping that you've enjoyed it. Check out our sponsor Organic Price Books, and why not catch up on one of my other videos. But until next time, whenever that may be, just make sure that you stay safe, stay reading the best books that you can find, and stay mad all you dogs. Woof woof! See you at the next video.